kids, and welcome back to I Have a Story. Yeah, this is another video that I have to tattle on myself. This is part of why, I've been there, I've done that, I've seen so much, and why I'm doing this channel to share it with you. Where a lot of my views come from about, well, in this video here, how you can fake schooling. It's so easy. I know. I did it one of my school years. Although I didn't actually do it. Well, with my tagline, I guess it's turned into my tagline. Follow along. God, and even sitting here thinking about, and it's part of doing this. Part of doing this, again, I've talked so much about it, I have to go back and think about things. And then at my maturity level now that I didn't have then, I see things now that I didn't see then that, wow. Lord, I screwed up, or I really don't even know in all instances, but okay, follow along. So I talked about in one of my previous videos about Lisa Oswald. And again, there's always more to talk about. My junior year, I went to a different school, and I didn't talk about that. I forgot to mention that in my video with Mrs. Woodruff. I was also in a new school where I didn't know anybody. This was another brand new high school to me. I'm surrounded by a whole lot of people I didn't grow up with. I didn't go to school with last year. These are all new people. Which has its good and its bad. You kind of get that mentality of, well, they don't know me. They're not going to see me again after this year. What difference does it make what they think? But honestly, I just love to make people laugh, and that's what it was my whole life, other than through all the pain and depression. It's how I fight pain and depression, and a lot of the bad thoughts in my head is to laugh and have fun with it. You go back and pull my doctor's reports. It's actually in many doctor's reports that I was one of the best patients and one of the most unbelievable patients that came in there, just making everybody laughing, having fun. And there's so much in my medical documents alone about just what I've done in my doctor's offices and visits and procedures and whatever, of just making everybody laugh. That's how I deal with my anxiety of fear of being in medical procedures. Make it laugh, have fun. It's the only positive emotion we can have with it. That's what I've learned. Back to the story. So talking about Lisa, she ended up, and back then I didn't understand it. Girls always have, you get your little emotions and your girl wars going on, and it's confusing to me, and I just, especially then, turned away from it, and I don't want nothing part of what you girls are doing. My junior year, she got in kind of a war, and her and I went to school my sophomore year together. Junior year, I transferred to a different high school to take auto mechanics, and I went to a different high school every single year. Ended up leaving Lisa at the other school and went to another new school, and then since that other school was actually out of our school district, I got a ride from one of the seniors to school every day, who lived a half a block away from Lisa. Looking back, Lisa was one who never showed much emotion, and it was definitely hard to read. Maybe she did really like me and I didn't know it. I don't know. But her and Jessica ended up having their feud, and maybe that's what it was. I don't really know. Maybe that's why Lisa got upset with her. I don't know. Again, things we look at now and didn't know and didn't look at with a different maturity level back then. But more of sexuality and more of how many other students this is their morning before school. I would walk over to Jessica's house. It was a block and a half away. And every morning, my junior year, I'd walk over to her house. I would get there before we had to leave. And I didn't do this on purpose. I really just would show up, and she would be the one running late. Her mom would tell me to come on in, go in her bedroom. She'll be in a minute. And her daughter's in the shower. And comes in the bedroom and just drops the towel in front of me. And every morning I got to look at a beautiful naked woman every single morning who was a year older than me. No, another time, her and I had never ever physical relation. Not one. Never kissed. We've hugged each other. We've held each other. I don't think we ever one time even as much as kissed. There was no sexuality between us besides. And even her mom trusted me, knowing that she was coming in the bedroom, coming out of the shower, and sent me to the bedroom to wait for her. When I tell you, parents knew me and trusted me and would literally put me in situations that most any parent would never allow a man to go stand in a girl's bedroom and wait for her to come out of the shower and go in the bedroom and get dressed. Mom knew it. They weren't hiding it. It was a one-story house. But that was my ride to school every morning and how I started my school. I remember she drove a Saab, and a red four-door Saab, and on the stick, it was a stick shift, and on the shifter she had a hand puppet that was a dog. That was her shifter. But this is how we went to school every morning, and that was how I got to start out my morning. Yay, right? Well, then we'd go to school, we'd wait till we got to school, and then every morning we'd smoke a joint. And then we'd decide we didn't want to go into school. Let's go out and get some breakfast. And we would typically go to the Village Inn, which actually, and it's kind of funny and ironic, was a before school teachers lounge type hangout, and we even hung out there before school with some of the teachers. And anyway, their signature coffee was putting cinnamon in their coffee, and it was their signature coffee was cinnamon in their coffee. But then we usually show up after second period. Now, Jessica worked as an office assistant, and she was friends with all the people in there. I remember Mrs. Wagner was the one at the counter every morning. Sylvania Southfield, you go look up people. I mean, now there's nothing you can say or do. This was so long, I mean, they were talking 30 years ago. I remember I had math with Mr. Shroom. And to be totally honest with you, I cannot even remember what my other class was. Because I had two classes that were standard school classes. It was math and I want to say science. I don't know. I don't even remember who the teacher was because I was never there. I remember Mr. Shroom because his name was Mr. Shroom. And there was a story that went around school that at one point in time somebody had liquid dosed his coffee with LSD and made him trip out in school. I don't know if that ever happened or not, or if that's true, but I do remember that story, and that was his name. That story going around the school that had taken place years prior to us. So he stands out. My other class, I don't even remember what the class was or who my teacher was, male, female, I don't even know. I truly can't remember because I never went. But how did I pass? Again, people, I tell you, I'm not proud of this, and I'm not glad that I did it. Again, being a dumb junior in high school, especially with the lack of guidance, a childhood that was making me act out in ways that I wouldn't had I had parents who loved me or gave any interest besides absolute absurd abuse. But my first two periods and then my third period was auto mechanics. I just made sure I was back to school before auto mechanics. A couple stories to tell about that too. But Jessica would go into the office, hey, Mrs. Wagner, and she'd go into the back when we get into school, and I'd act like I'm signing in tardy every day. And Jessica would go pull our files, remove our absences and our tardies. She'd mark our grades in. And we passed school without ever having to go to much of it. No, people, I'm not proud of any of that, and I can look back and laugh now, but this is also part of how I have the knowledge I have now to be able to look and see fraud and the possibilities of fraud. And I have to severely, I mean, it's a giant red flag. How can I not question how a woman who is a cardiovascular, pediatric cardiovascular specialist who took how many years of school? How many years of schooling does that take? to become a pediatric heart specialist. But yet, after you went through all the schooling, past American books in American language, and you're Indian and still can't even speak English yet, how did you make it? How did you do all that? How did it happen? Did you have somebody going behind the counter and being able to sign your grades and sign you not tardy too? I mean, I can't put it together two and two to anything else. I mean, how I don't expect to go to any other country. I cannot speak their language and think I'm going to be able to pass any type of schooling, let alone something to be as brilliant as a pediatric heart specialist. But yet my sons could still barely speak English and could not communicate properly. And it's even in his report as to what she put in there was not proper because she couldn't even speak English properly. How did she pass such a stringent school? I wish the world was a perfect place and I didn't have to think about this stuff and I hadn't seen all that I have to have these feelings and doubts and fears. But it's part of how I know it exists because I've seen it. I did it too. I just want a better future than what we have, what I've seen, what I feel, and what's still to come.